Good afternoon, everybody. So this is the sixth and final lecture of the series. So you will be free from me after 5:30 today. Till then, you have to bear with me. So let us get started. Today, I'm going to start with something which originally I would have started on the very first lecture. All right. Luckily, I asked Shweta to have a meeting with the students, and depending upon their request, I started somewhat little more elementary. I hope you appreciate that. If you really appreciate, the credit should go to your friends, not to me. Okay. My talking to them helped me. Yeah, but their honest opinion also helped me. Okay, so let us start for today's lecture. So yeah, after everything, I'll give about 10-15 seconds, and I would really like you to give me your thing, yes or no, very quickly, because for especially for third year, not third year, what is it? Third semester students, some of the things you are just now getting used to, so you may have some slight difficulty possibly, but please let me know if you have anything. Okay, so I'm going to today work with Rn, but whenever you want, you can assume to be n equal to 1, 2, or 3. And I hope all of you know what is Rn. It is set of all ordered n tuples so that xi is in R for 1 less than or equal to I less than or equal to n. Okay. Any element of Rn, I will simply write as x. Okay. I will not write x vector, x, any such thing. Okay. And like a textbook, it will not be a bold face. This, whenever I write x, it stands for, when I write x is in Rn, it stands for the n tuple. So if I write y is in Rn, I know what it means, right? All of you know that. Yes? Okay. Then given any element of Rn, I will call it as a vector. Then I will define the sum of two vectors. This must be again an n tuple. How do I get it? I add the component wise or coordinate wise. That is x1 plus y1 and xn plus yn. And if given a real scalar t in R, then we define what is called a scalar multiple of x. This must be again an n tuple in Rn that is given by tx1, txn. What is tx1? It is a product of two real numbers t and x1. Similarly, txn. Right? So the properties, etc., I'm sure you would already learn in your course now. Right? There are few things I would like to talk about. As we did with R2 and R3, okay, we want to define the distance between 2 points. Okay. If in 3, if I have the vector x1, x2, x3 and y1, y2, y3, instead of x, y, z, I'm writing as in terms of 1, 2, 3. The distance between these two x and y was by definition square root of xi minus yi whole squared and summation over I equal to 1 to n. So here also we do the same thing. Take xi minus yi, take its square and then take its root. Okay. This is what is known as the distance. Okay. Now let us look at what is the distance between x and 0. Okay. Because of this, we are generalizing to any n Rn space. Okay. We know for 2 and 3, what it means, the distance between x and y, even n equal to 1, we know that. We generalize the formula to n. So what is this? This is going to be summation xi squared and take it to the power half. This is usually denoted by x, and this is called the length or norm of the vector. Okay, norm of the vector is nothing other than the distance from 0 to x. So the way we usually do is, suppose this is my x, Then look at this distance. Okay, this distance is your norm of x. Okay, that's what you call the length of the vector. Okay, so in terms of the length of the vector, notice that d of xy is nothing other than norm of the vector x minus y. What is x minus y? X minus y is x1 minus y1, xn minus yn. Therefore, norm of this is going to be this. That is nothing other than distance. Are all of you comfortable so far? Please let me know quick. Say yes if you are comfortable. Good. Okay, very good. You can lower your yes symbols. Okay. There is one more thing which I need. All of you were asking about gradient yesterday, right? For that, I need that. So let me just state it without proof. This is known as Cauchy-Schwarz inequality. But for that, I need something more. Maybe I should say that before I come to that. Given two vectors, x and y in Rn, I have what is known as a dot product, x dot y. This by definition is summation xi, yi, I equal to 1 to n. Right? Therefore, what is x dot x? That is xi squared. But what is that? That is what we call length squared. You understand that? Go back. This is it. This is length. Therefore, this is length squared, x dot x. X dot y is this. Okay? Now, the Cauchy-Schwarz inequality says for any two vectors x and y in Rn, x dot y is a real number. This real number in absolute value, I have an estimate that is less than or equal to length of x into length of y. This is product of two real numbers. Here, this is dot product of two vectors. And that's a real number. This is a modulus. Okay? You take it on faith. There is a very trivial algebraic proof, but I don't want to stop for that. Okay? So take it for granted. Some of you might already seen it. So we shall assume this. Yeah. Is the statement clear? This is what you must have seen in your R2. R2 would have seen this x dot y. You might have seen, suppose x. Okay. I'll write it x dot y, where x equal to x1, x2 instead of xy in R2. Okay. And y equal to y1, y2 in R2. You might have seen this. This is nothing other than length of x, length of y, and cos theta, where theta is the angle between these two vectors. Okay, this is the geometric interpretation of the dot product. So I have two vectors. Okay, this is my x, this is my y. Then take this length and let's look at the length theta between that, the angle between them, and make a cos theta. Then the dot product is length of x, length of y into cos theta. This you must have seen in R2. Because from yesterday's discussion, I saw some of you already know that. But let's come back to this. This is all I will need. Okay. What is x dot y? This. And what is x dot x? It's nothing other than length squared, square of the length of the vector. And I have an estimate for the dot product. Modulus of x dot y is less than or equal to length of x into length of y. Okay. This is known as Cauchy-Schwarz inequality. So this is very quick review of Rn with a necessary geometry. So I'll give you about 10-15 seconds. If you have any problem, please ask me. Okay. Now we are going to make use of the following often. So let me call in Rn, I will introduce some vectors what I call E1, E2 and En. E1 is 1 at the first place, all other coordinates are 0. En is 0 at all coordinates, at the nth place it's 1. So what will be Ei? This is ith place. So notice that all are vectors in Rn. And you can see given any vector x in Rn, you write x equal to x1 xn. This is nothing other than scalar multiple of x1 e1 by x1 plus x2 e2 plus xn en. Because x1 times this will be x1, x2 times something will be x2 0, x2 0 0, and xn times en will be 0 0 xn. So if I add these vectors, I'll get only x1 x2 xn. Do all of you know this? Can I take it for granted? Please say yes. If okay. So when we write x equal to the n tuple, it's a shorthand notation for this. If you want, let me do that. So this will be x1 times, I have to multiply everything. This is, remember x1 is a number now, it's like a t. Therefore x1 0 0 0. This will be multiply each other coordinates by x2, that is 0 x2 0. This will be 0 0 xn. So if I add, what will I get? I have to add coordinate wise, if you know that. Therefore it's going to be x1 x2 xn. Please say yes if you follow what I have done. I'm sure all of you have seen this. Okay. As I did in yesterday's class, you may see this R3, usually you will write x1, x2, x3 instead of x, y, z. This you will write as x1 times I plus x2 times j plus x3 times k. You call I, j, k as a basic vectors. In our notation, is nothing other than x1, e1, x2, e2 plus x3, e3. So this generalizes what you learn in your vector algebra. Hopefully these are all the preliminaries I need now. Okay. So pause, review and proceed. Can I go ahead? If I see at least 24 years, I'll go ahead. Asta, do you want to say something? Please mute your mic. There are only 21 yet. No, keep it yes. If you remove that, I will not know. Right, very good. Now more than 30. That's good. You can lower your yes. Okay. So it's essentially a crash thing about some basic facts about linear algebra about Rn. But you can see these are all something to the real numbers. It's really easy. There is nothing. Now I want to talk about a map from Rn to R. Okay. I want to say this is a linear map. Okay. Is a linear map if the following are true. You give me two vectors x and y in Rn, then I can form the sum of the vectors x plus y. That will be again a vector in Rn, right? Now, therefore, I can ask what is the image of t of xy. Okay, remember x plus y is a vector in Rn, t is a map from Rn to Rn, therefore, this is a real number. This belongs to real number. Now, let's look at x in Rn, therefore, tx is also a real number, ty is also a real number. I can add these two real numbers. So, I want this to be equal. T of x plus y must be equal to Tx plus Ty. That's first condition. And second condition is T of, so it's unfortunate it chose T so that I can't use yes, so I'll use yes. Yes, where S is a real number, this should be, remember X is a vector, S is a real number, therefore Sx is again a vector in Rn, therefore T of Sx will be a real number. Now let's look at Tx, this is a real number and S is a real number, therefore I can multiply these two. This is ordinary multiplication of two real numbers, but whereas this is the scalar multiplication which we defined. S dot x will be S of x1, S times x2, dot 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 x times xn. That is a n tuple. So when t it acts on that, that should be a real number. I want this to be a real number. Okay, then I call any such map T which satisfies these two conditions as a linear map. Okay, don't lose heart. This is very easy, but fifth year semester students may already know some of these things. What we want to do is very simple. I want to find all linear maps from Rn to R. You understand? This is my goal. Usually in linear algebra course, people don't do that. They talk about various things, example, but the most important example for me is what are all the linear maps from Rn to R. You will see that is very easy. Notice that suppose T is a linear map from Rn to R. Right? Now start with the vector x in Rn. Now do you see that? I can write x as x times E1 plus x times E2 plus x times En, where E1, E2, En are vectors, but now x1, x2, xn are scalars. Right? Therefore, when I can ask what is T of x? T of x is going to be T of x1 E1 plus xn En. Do you understand this? Now notice that T of x plus y is Tx plus Ty. Now this is a vector and this is a vector, this is a vector. Therefore this is going to be T of x1 E1 plus T of x2 E2 plus T of xn En. This is because of the first condition. When T is a linear, T of x plus y must be Tx plus Ty. Now let's look at the second condition. T of scalar multiple of x, the scalar multiple comes out. So T of x1 E1, this is same as x1 T of E1 plus x2 T of U2 plus xn T of En. How many of you understood this? Please say yes if you understood. Right? These are pure symbolic manipulation. There is nothing great, except I have to make use of the definition. Is it okay? Now suppose let me call alpha I to be T of Vi. Remember T of Vi, sometimes most often I write only this way. Okay. Alpha I, this is a real number. Do you understand this? Because T is a map from Rn to R. Ei is a vector in Rn. Therefore Ti Ei must be a real number. You follow that? Therefore, this is nothing other than x alpha 1, x1 alpha 1, x2 alpha 2, dot dot plus xn alpha n, where alpha I is this. Okay. Now go back. Do you see what this is? Do you recognize this? In terms of something which you defined earlier? Note, let us look at alpha as alpha 1, alpha n. This is a vector in Rn, right? What is alpha I? It is T of Vi. That's a number, right? Therefore, this alpha is a vector in Rn. X is a vector in Rn. Then what is x1 alpha 1, x2 alpha 2, xn alpha n? Can somebody tell me the answer?
Sir, dot product.
Yes, that's a dot product of x, the vector x and alpha. How many of you understood this? Go back to the definition. Yeah. See? This is the dot product. Given two vectors x and y, the dot product is summation xi yi. Now you see what I got? It is dot product of x and alpha. What is alpha? Alpha is alpha 1 to alpha n. Then what is alpha I? That is nothing other than T of Ei. Okay, Ei, is that clear? So what do you think we have found? We have found out if T, okay, is a linear map from Rn to R, okay, there exists a vector alpha in Rn such that T of x equal to x dot alpha for every x in Rn. Not only that, I also know this is not simply existence. I simply say, like God exists, I don't say that exists. I can show you the God now. This is nothing other than where alpha I is alpha equal to alpha 1 alpha n and alpha I is T of Ei. Since T is given to be a linear map, T of Ei is a real number, call it alpha I, then form the n tuple alpha. This is a vector in Rn. So I know this vector. Do you understand? So we actually found out any linear map T from Rn to R is of this form. It is of the form x dot alpha, where alpha is determined very precisely. Conversely, if beta equal to beta 1 beta n is a vector in Rn, define T of x to be summation xi beta I equal to 1 to n, then T from Rn to R is a linear map. Because T of x plus y will be xi plus yi times beta I, use a distributive law, therefore it will be T of x plus T of y, and so on. Okay, I don't want to stop to do that. That's a trivial algebra. So, what I want you to pay attention is, now we have classified all linear maps from Rn to R. Okay, it's not just like that arbitrary. We know what are all the linear maps from Rn to R. It arises as x dot alpha, where alpha is a unique vector in Rn. Do I know alpha? Yes. To know alpha, what I have to do? I have to tell you what is the ith coordinate. What is the ith coordinate of alpha? It is T of Ei. Because T is already given, therefore T of Ei will be a number, real number. So that is your alpha. Okay. Please pause, review, then we will proceed. I'll give you 15 seconds. Please go through this. Even fifth semester students should go through this. So this is a very special case where we have classified, we have found all linear maps. We know all of them. That's something very interesting. Please say yes if I can go ahead. Do not lower your yes. I would like to see that. What is the maximum it can hit? Okay. Now I am ready for differentiation. You will be surprised. This all you have to know. And remember, I already told you of an article of mine. These things will also be done there. Okay. This PDF will be shared with you, so you don't have to again ask me where to locate it. Okay. You can always find it. Now, what we want to do is let U be a subset of Rn, and I want to make a demand on U. Whenever X is there, okay, this may be your U, this is Rn. I always draw a picture in R2, that's already gives enough geometry for me. Then what I want is, okay, there is an R positive so that all points Y whose distance between X and R is less than X and Y is less than R. That is, This is x. All points y which are less than at the distance r, they all should lie in U. Okay. Just ignore if you don't want to think of such things. But I think final year students, fifth semester students should understand what I'm talking about. Okay. So I demand that my U satisfy this property. For every x, this should happen. Okay. You call it an open set or something, but let's not worry about it. Okay. Now suppose I have a function f from U to R and fix a point A in U. I want to define f is differentiability of f. Notice that when n equal to 1, 2, you had already seen the definition of differentiability, because this U will be a subset of R, or it will be a subset of R2, or it could be a subset of R3 in case you know it, but let's not worry about. Okay. So we want to define. Now what we are going to do is I want to say the following. Suppose H is very near to 0, right? Then A plus H will be very near to A. Do you understand that? Because distance between A plus H and A will be the length of this vector with this H, right? So we know that for all y which are at a distance r, okay, suppose A plus H and A, this distance is less than r, that means same as saying the length of the vector H is less than r. Okay, then A plus H will be in U. How many of you understand what I'm saying? So again, look at the picture. This is my A, okay, right? H, and this is my vector H, which is very small, okay, in R thing. Then A plus R, A plus H will be this. Okay, I want to say then if H is in norm of H is less than R, then I want to say A plus H, distance between A plus H and A is less than R. Why? Because distance between A plus H and A is the length of A plus H minus A, which is length of H, which is less than R. You understand this? Why do I have to make sure of this? Because f of A plus H will make sense now. Because U is the domain of f, A plus H lies in the domain. Okay. So H is an increment in the independent variable A. So as we did earlier, I want to approximate f of A plus H minus f of A. This is the increment where in the independent variable. I want to approximate it by a linear map A. This is a linear map A from Rn to R acting on the increment. Notice that in the case of 2, what did I do? F of A plus H, that is f of A plus H comma B plus K minus f of AB. I wanted to approximate by means of first degree polynomial. That is of the form alpha H plus beta K. Do you remember that? Okay. So now instead, I am going to say I want to approximate it by means of a linear map. Please bear with me. You will see that it's very, very interesting, and it explains all our 5 days of work. And this kind of thing explains everything and makes it very easy. Okay. You don't have to keep on writing notation. Okay, x, y, z, or x1, x2, xn, nothing is needed. Okay. Then whenever I approximate what did I want, I should put a condition. Can somebody tell me what should be the condition? Okay. I will write the definition in a minute, but I want you to say that. So I want to say f is differentiable at A. That means for all h such that length of h is less than r, f of A plus h minus f of A should be approximately equal to A times h, where A is a linear map from Rn to R. Notice that f of A plus h minus f of A is a real number. A is a linear map from Rn to R. H is a vector in Rn, therefore AH will be a real number. So this real number is approximately equal to this real number. Okay, then what should be the next condition I should impose? Can somebody tell me? Quick. All my 5 days of work is going waste.
Sir, FA plus H minus FA minus AH is less than epsilon. Mod of the
No.
whole.
No.
F of
That's
A.
correct. You are writing epsilon delta. You are a much more advanced student for me. Good.
Sir,
Okay,
F of
but what I
plus
want is first
will move
qualitative.
to zero faster than
Very good. Very
x
good.
tending
See,
to zero.
yeah, always, as Einstein said, imagination is more important than intelligence. Okay, so first imagine, then only you can create things. But if you are intelligent, you can only verify things. Okay, this should go to zero faster than h going to zero. Okay, now you can do as another student said. That is, let me write the definition now. Definition: f is differentiable at a if there exists a linear map Rn to R. See, there in R2 case, what did we say? There exist two real numbers on alpha, beta. Here I am going to say there is a linear map Rn to R. Such that what happens? You give me an epsilon positive, I can find a delta positive, so that if 0 less than length of h less than delta should imply modulus of f of a plus h minus f of a minus ah. This is a real number. This real number should be less than epsilon times the length of h. Do you see that? It's exactly similar. Here, earlier case, in two variable case, h was h comma k, a was a comma b, and this ah was alpha h plus beta k minus. Okay. So it's exactly similar. And length of h was square root of h squared plus k squared. So everything tallies. This is exactly similar to what we did in two variable case. How many of you are convinced? Take about 15 seconds because this is a very crucial thing. Once you are convinced, please say yes. I want at least 30 and keep your yes up till I say you can lower. Please accept reality, don't resist. See, when I had a keyboard phone with the key, right? Then when this touch phone came, then I could have resisted. Like all old people, I can also resist, right? It's so difficult for me. But what do? You accept this is a thing to come, then learn to work with it. So many of those times, students, what they do is they are ready to do that. Whenever the new gadget comes, you are ready to learn that. But whenever the new definition comes, you resist it. Okay, don't accept it. A is a linear map. Does it make sense? Yes. Does it sound similar to what we have seen earlier? Yes. Then I'm happy. Okay. This is something new gadget. So let me play with it. That should be the attitude. Okay. Many times students, the moment you do something, okay, you don't want to accept, you don't want to adapt. So what do? What is the use of it? Oh, it looks so abstract. Okay. So it's essentially defeatist attitude in my opinion. So do you want to be a defeatist or you want to succeed? The choice is yours. This is a new thing. It's a gadget. Learn to play with it. We are going to play with it. Okay. Let us try to understand when n equal to 2 case. Okay. I will revert back to the 2 case notation. Therefore, the point is AB in R, U, which is in R2. And my increment is HK. Therefore, I am looking at B plus K and F of this minus F of AB. Right? Minus alpha times H minus beta times k. This in modulus, I want it to be less than epsilon into a squared. This was our two variable. Okay. Now let's try to understand. Now A, this is 2, sorry. A is a linear map from R2 to R, right? And just now I classified all linear maps. Therefore, what is A of xy? A of xy must be of the form x times alpha plus y times beta. Do you understand? For some unique alpha beta in R2. Instead of alpha 1, alpha 2, I am again saying alpha comma beta. Do you understand this? Any linear map from R2 to R is of the form A of xy equal to x alpha plus y beta. Do you understand? Therefore, this is nothing other than A acting on the vector hk. What is the linear map? A hk is h alpha plus k beta. How many of you appreciate this? We have not done anything. There I thought of as a first degree polynomial. Here I am thinking it as a linear map. The reason for that will be clear. Okay, how many of you appreciate this? So it's exactly the same as the two variable case. There is no change, except I am thinking of this as a single thing and it's a linear map acting on the increment in the independent variable. Okay. Now, let me look at n equal to 1 case. Suppose I have f again. F of a plus h minus f of a minus f dash of a into h. This should be less than epsilon times mod h. Whenever 0 less than mod h less than delta or whatever. Right? This is the definition of f is differentiable at a with the derivative of dash a. Does it tally with our new definition? Now, what are the linear map from T from R to R? According to us, T of x must be x times alpha. That's it. There is a unique real number alpha. And what is alpha? Alpha is T of 1. You understand this? This alpha is your f dash. F dash at T. So even one variable case and two variable case, we get exactly this. Okay. Do you understand? Now I want to do one step better. Let me look at the picture. So U is somewhere here and this is my A. Then what I know is I don't like this. I want a big one. Ah, good. And this is my A. Okay, this is your U. Okay, this is my A and everything with the radius less than R. This R will depend upon A because if it is very near, it will be, the R may be very small. Anyway, okay, this R. Now let us look at, take any vector H, right? Then look at this vector A plus H, okay, so that norm H is less than R, okay, the length of H is less than R, then A plus H, distance between A plus H and A is less than R. We had already seen this. Do you understand this? So this is the vector A plus H. That is the vector through A, which is parallel to the line segment, through A, which is parallel to the vector H. This is your H. If you have a problem, look at R2. Okay, I have a vector A. Okay, my H is going to be, let us say, okay, some H comma 0. This is the vector. Then this will be, this is A comma B. Therefore, this will be A plus H comma B. Do you understand this? And if it is, my H is here, it will be this, A, B plus K. Okay. Are you following what I'm saying? I want you to always, whenever you are in doubt, go back to R2 or R3, try to understand what is happening geometrically. So that you should not play only with symbols. That is also important. But at the same time, you should build your imagination and intuition. Do you understand this? Now let's look at, okay, A plus T times H, okay, for 0 less than or equal to T less than or equal to 1. Okay, what is the distance between this and H? A. I claim this point is A plus TH is here. So I will just draw, magnify the picture so that you all of you can see. This is my A. This is my A plus H. Okay. This is my A plus TH, where T lies between 0 and 1. If T is 0, it is here. When T is 1, it is A plus H. And what is this? This is A plus TH minus A. This is length of T times H. This is mod T times. But remember, mod T is same as T, which is less than 1. Therefore, this is less than 1. Yeah, because norm H is, length H is less than R. Do all of you understand this? So what I claim to say is, this is completely for any vector here. Okay, I can go through A. Suppose you give me a vector like this, I can go through A, this vector. Okay. Up to certain length, the vector will be completely contained in this U. Therefore, F at any of these points is defined. So I give you 15 seconds. Please go through it. Whenever you are in doubt, stick to R2 and the picture. Okay. Now let me assume F from U to R is differentiable at A. Okay. And let V be any vector in Rn. Okay. Now let's look at A plus T times V. I say this belongs to U if T is very near to 0. If it belongs to you, then f of A plus TV will make sense. Do you understand this? That's the reason why I have to say this. Because I want to write f of A plus TV, but when it will make sense if A plus TV is in U. So I say if T is very near to 0, this will be there. Why? Remember, let us look at the distance between A plus TV. As I just now did, it's the same thing. This is length of A plus TV minus A, that is length of TV, that is mod T. Now I am not assuming T is positive, mod T into norm of, right? So I have to choose T so that mod T times length of V is less than R. Because if the distance between X and A is less than R, then that particular point X is in U. Therefore, A plus T will be in U. You understand? So what does it mean? I have to choose T so that T is less than R by length of V. If length of V is 0, then it is always there because this is A plus 0 only. Do all of you accept it? So again, look at the picture. The picture says if I have something like this A, okay, give me any direction, and okay, in that direction I can go both side, okay, up to certain positive number R by length of V. Now, if you don't want to assume these things, I can start writing some nonsense. Okay. The only thing is, you should learn to go step by step and make sure you are making sense. Everything is precise. That's what we are doing. Okay. Otherwise, simply write f of A plus H, B plus K minus f of A, B, etc. But f of A plus H, comma B plus K must make sense. So we have to go carefully. How many of you understand? Can I go ahead? As usual, I am asking you to understand only about 30 to 40%, so that you are reasonably comfortable with the next topic, whatever I'm going to say. So now let's look at f of a plus tv minus f of a. This is a real number. By the real number t, I want to know whether the limit t goes to 0 of this exists. This is the question. Okay. So what is my assumption? F is a function from u to r. I assume it's differentiable at a, right? Then for t sufficiently near to 0 in an interval around 0, a plus tb lies in u. Therefore, f of a plus tb like this. You see that now I have made it a one variable function. The function is t going to f of a plus tb. And this t is defined, you call this as epsilon, then it's defined in the interval minus epsilon to plus epsilon to r. This is the function t going to f of a plus tb. See, this is one variable. This is one variable t is a real number. F of a plus tb is a real number. Therefore, this is like a function from r to r. So I'm reducing the problem to one variable. Is the question clear? Let us try to understand what it really means. What is this object? Suppose my v is E1, right? My A is, let us say, A1 to AN. Again, if you want, take n equal to 2 and A comma B, and E1 will be 1 comma 0, and therefore what will be A plus TE1 TV? That is A plus TE1. That is A1 to AN plus T times E1, that is T comma 100, and this is A1 plus T, A2 and AN. In the case of n, what happened then? It is A plus T comma B. Do you understand this? Similarly, if V equal to I, what will be A plus TI? That will be A1, AI minus 1, AI plus T, AI plus 1 and AN. How many of you understand this? Say quickly. So what we are doing, when I write A plus TB, I am increasing only the component of V component of A. When V equal to EI, what I am doing? It is only increment in the ith coordinate. You understand that? When V equal to E1, it is only increment in the first coordinate. When V equal to E2, it will be increment only in the second coordinate and so on. Do you understand? So this is something like your partial derivative. Do you understand this? If the limit exists, it will be like something like a partial derivative. We will give a name. So the question is whether the limit exists. So again, let me formulate the question. F of a plus tv minus f of a by t, limit t going to 0, whether it exists. Right? Just now I said the answer. What did I say? The answer is, I gave an analogy. This is something like your a partial derivative. Just now I gave the example of R2. Yeah? So what is your answer? If f is differentiable at a, do you think the limit will exist? How many of you can answer? Just intuition. We need a proof. We will give a proof. Do you think the limit will exist or it will not exist? Bhavana? It will exist, right? How many of
Yes,
you
sir.
think the limit will exist? Let's see.
Sir, it will exist if
Right.
only
Very
every
good.
V in
Now it
that.
will exist. Remember, if it exists, it must be a real number, right? Because this is a real number, this is a real number, this is a real number, therefore the limit exists, a real number. So, if it exists, then I should know what it is. Right? So the only thing I know is something similar derivative exists, right? Because f is differentiable at a, therefore what will I do? I will try to make use of that. Since f is differentiable, what I know is f of a plus h minus f of a. There is a linear map, right? So that this is less than epsilon times length of h, right? So that for every epsilon greater than 0, there is a delta positive, so that this happens, right? Now I made use of this. Now let's look at that. What I am looking at? I am looking at f of a plus tv. Here it is f of h. So what do you think I should do? Can somebody tell me? I want to replace h with something so that I can reduce to this expression. The answer is clear, right? What will I do? Arshi, can you tell me what should I do? Do you understand this? In place of h, I substitute the vector tv. Then this inequality is true provided length of h should be less than delta. That means length of tv should be less than delta. Do you follow that? Okay. Now what is this? This is mod t times length of v. This is mod t times length of v should be less than delta. That means mod t should be less than delta by length of v. But that's independent. Okay. That means for all t near to 0, this will be true statement. But let's rearrange this term here. Notice that what I want to say the limit exists, f of a plus tv minus f of a by t. So what should I do? I should use the linearity of a here. So a acting on tv, the scalar t comes out. Therefore it is minus t times av. So this, the last expression is nothing other than f of a plus tv minus f of a minus t times av is less than epsilon mod t into length of v. You understand? Now I can divide everything by t. So if I divide everything by t, what do I get? F of a plus tv minus f of a by t minus av is less than. Notice that there is a modulus, because this is more, sorry, I'm writing length, it's a modulus. There is a modulus of whole thing. Therefore this is f of a plus tv minus f of a by t minus av in modulus is less than epsilon times length of v. So what does this show? Can somebody tell me what does this inequality show? It shows the limit f of a plus tv minus f of a by t exists. And what is it? And it's equal to a acting on b. Remember, a is a linear map from Rn to R, and v is a vector, therefore a will be a real number. So we have, not only we know it exists, we also found out the limit. Okay, take some time, go through it. I'll give you 15 seconds. So let us go. Do you understand this? I'll keep asking. Say yes quickly, and then you can remove. Give 5 seconds after saying yes. Do you understand this? This is the definition. And now in place of h, I am writing tv, therefore I get this. Do you understand this? Okay. But for this inequality to be true, I want norm h to length h should be less than delta. right? That means here length of TV should be less than delta. Is that clear? But if t is very near to 0, then I can always make mod t is less than this number. Therefore, for all t in this interval around 0, this makes sense. Okay. Now what do I do? I'm using the fact A is linear, therefore t can be pulled out. Do you understand this one, how it came? Say yes, if you understand. Right? Now what do I want to do? I want to look at this limit, therefore I have to bring the difference quotient. So what do I do? This t, I divide everything by t. If I divide everything by t, this becomes f of a plus tv minus f of a by t minus t by t, that cancel, therefore ab. This is less than epsilon times, here I forgot norm of v, length of v. Because there is a mod t, this mod t I have to divide here also, they cancel. Therefore I am getting it. Okay, this is a fixed constant. V is fixed, therefore this is some multiple of epsilon. So no problem. So this shows, okay, whenever mod t is less than this number, this difference quotient minus AV is arbitrarily small. That means this limit exists and it has to be A of V. So please clear your yes. Quick. Clear your yes. Yeah. Now do you understand this? What you have shown is this limit exists and this is a very crucial thing. Okay, not only we know the limit exists, we know it is nothing other than, since f is differentiable, there is a linear map, that linear map acting on the vector b. This limit is this. This is what we have proved. Okay. So it's almost 57 minutes, at least 55 minutes. Okay. So would you like to have some break for about 15-20 minutes in your breakout room and then come back? Because I need another 30 minutes. Shweta, do you think about 15-20 minutes of breakout room will be good for them to review, because it was a bit fast? They
Yes,
should go
sir.
through.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I will send the PDF file, but I will also send the PDF file at the end,
Okay, sir.
because there is still a lot more work to be done, about 30 minutes of work. Yeah. So let's start the process. Okay. So what we proved was, fix any vector v. It could be any vector in Rn. Okay. Any vector in Rn. Then we showed this limit exists. Okay. So what we are doing is, as I said, this is v. Then in that direction I am going here. Therefore, I am looking at the rate of change of the function f in the direction of v at the point A. Therefore, this limit is called the directional derivative. The limit f of a plus tv minus f of a by t. Okay, this we have seen, this is a of v, and this is called the directional derivative of f at a. In which direction? In the direction of v. Okay. Some of the old textbooks will ask you to take v to be a unit vector. As I just now showed, it does not matter. Any vector will do. Okay. Because it's an old-fashioned thing. People directional derivative, they define only with respect to what they call vectors of length 1. That's not needed. Okay. Now again notice that when v equal to one of the E1, E2 or En, then what we get was, you already saw it, but let me just write it. Ai plus t an minus f of a1 ai an by t. Okay, there's a limit t going to 0. So that means you are giving increment only in the ith variable and looking at the rate of change. Therefore, as in the one variable case, we will call it the partial derivative of f in the ith direction xi at the point A, del f by del xi at A. Okay. Now there is a dividend. Have you understood this? So in particular, when v equal to vi, then what I showed was this limit exists is same as saying the partial derivative of f with respect to xi variable exists at A. And what is that? That is A acting on ei. Because for any v, it is A acting on v. Therefore, this partial derivative is A acting on ei. Do you understand this? This is very crucial for what I am going to say now. How many of you understand? Okay, I am specializing v to ei, one of the coordinate directions. Therefore, I am going to get the partial derivatives. But do I know the partial derivatives at A? Yes. It is the linear map A acting on ei. Please say yes if you follow. Now there is a dividend, a very kind of heartwarming dividend. Notice that A is a linear map, right? It's a linear map from Rn to R, right? Therefore, we know any linear map A is of the form Ax equal to x dot alpha for a unique vector alpha in Rn, right? Therefore, if f is differentiable at A with this linear map capital A, then A is determined the moment I know alpha. Do you understand this? Because I have to know what is A acting on x. That I know this. The moment you tell me what is the corresponding vector alpha, then A acting on x is same as x dot alpha. Therefore, this is same as knowing alpha. Knowing A is same as knowing the vector alpha in Rn. Notice that A is a map from Rn to R, but alpha is a vector in Rn. So how are they related? Ax equal to x dot alpha for every x in Rn. Do you understand this? Okay. Now let me just give a notation which I have not given. This A, if f is differentiable at A, then there is a linear map A. No, this linear map is unique. You can see a proof in my article, but you can skip it. Okay. When you come to the final year BSc, 6th semester or the first year MSc, you can go through that proof. For the time being, we assume such a is unique. Then this A is given by A acting on x equal to x dot alpha. This alpha is called the gradient of f at A. Go slow. This A is denoted by derivative of f at the point A. This is my notation. It may not be standard. There are people who will write as f dash A. I don't use it because for me A is a linear map. So if f is from R to R, f dash A is a number. Whereas if you write f dash A for linear map, that's nonsense. Okay, so I use the notation dfa for the derivative. I read it as the derivative of f at A. Therefore, what we know is derivative of f A acting on any vector x is x dot alpha. This vector alpha is called the gradient of f at A. So notice that I do not define the gradient of f unless f is differentiable. That's the first point you should know, because I am going to derive explicit expression for the gradient. This is a vector, right? So I want to know what is. So what we want to know is, do I know how to identify this? This is a question I want to know. But that is very easy. Remember, when A is a linear map from Rn to R and Ax equal to x dot alpha, what is alpha? Alpha is alpha 1 to alpha n. Yeah. But what is alpha 1 to alpha n? This is A of E1 and A of En. That is A acting on E1, A acting on En. That's a number, this is a number. You understand? Therefore, what is delta f? This del f at a, this is the gradient of f at a, this is your alpha. Therefore, what is its ith coordinate? Ith coordinate is dfa, that is your capital A, this acting on ei. Go slow. Please understand, these are the small, very trivial issues. Okay, it is like, you know, having various things. Okay, you have a 2 rupee note, 1 rupee note, 5, okay, 500 rupee note, 1000 rupee note is anyway demonetized, 2000 rupee note. Okay, so you can count the money, perhaps everything was in terms of 2000 rupee note or 500 rupee note or 2 rupee note. Of course, it doesn't exist now. Okay, but there the amount is the same. Okay, 2 lakh rupees, but I may be having to have something like 100 2000 rupee notes or 2000 100 rupee note or 4050 rupee note and so on and so forth. You understand this? Or 2 rupee coins, 1 lakh coins. That will be very interesting, right? How heavy it will be. Anyway, you follow? So we are trying to understand what it is. Go slow. Do not this notation bother you. Your derivative is a acting on x, x dot alpha. Now do I know alpha? Yes. I have to look at its ith coordinate. The ith coordinate is a acting on ei. But a acting on ei, that is the derivative, the linear map a acting on ei, just now we saw what it is. That is nothing other than the partial derivative of f at xi, ith partial derivative. Therefore, the gradient vector del f at a is this vector del f by del x1 at a, del f by del x2 at a, and del f by del xn at a. Therefore, we have found a formula for the gradient. That is in terms of the partial derivatives of f. That's good. But notice that what I said, I do not talk about the gradient of f at a unless the function f is differentiable at a. Why? Because we had already seen in R2, there is a function for which the partial derivatives exist, but it is not differentiable. Therefore, just because I know how to compute the partial derivative, form that vector, and then I cannot call it a gradient vector unless the function is differentiable. How many of you appreciate this point? What I'm saying? Take some 10 seconds. If you want, I will repeat. I will give an example also soon. Okay. Go slow. I will just show this. So A is linear map, then we know it is Ax is x dot alpha, and I also know what is alpha, right? Now suppose f is differentiable with derivative capital A, that's a linear map, right? Now I want to know, then I know Ax equal to x dot alpha for some unique vector alpha. That unique vector is called the gradient of f at A. This is the notation for this. Now next question is, do I have an expression for the gradient of f at A? Right? Now let's go back. This is just alpha. To find alpha, I have to know what is the ith coordinate. Okay. From the first thing, we already did that very long ago. Right? You saw that? Our alpha is T of ei. Here it is A of x equal to x dot alpha. Therefore, A of ei will be your alpha I. But now we saw A of ei is nothing other than the ith partial derivative of f at A. Therefore, I found a formula for the gradient. Okay. I'll keep quiet for about 15 seconds. Go through it. If you have some kind of an idea, understood, 30-40%, please say yes. All these things will be available from my article. Oh, I'm supposed to keep quiet. Okay, I'll keep quiet. Yeah. How many of you have some reasonable understanding? Please say yes and keep yes up for a while. Good. So there are about 30 people. I'm happy about that. Okay. Do not lose heart. Okay. Whenever you learn something new, this kind of thing always happens. Okay. And so you should aim to understand about 30-40% and then review, because understanding is personal. No teacher can make you understand. Understanding is your own effort. I think I told you in one of the lectures. Okay. Now let's look at the function. We had already seen this one essentially, when we talked about limit. Okay. Then we know this is not even continuous, but what we know, the directional derivative, this is very easy. I leave it to you. Directional derivative of f exists. All directional derivatives exist. All directional derivatives of f at 0, 0 exist. Okay. But we have known that the function is not even continuous. You understand? Therefore, there is no question of differentiability. And hence, in particular, I cannot talk about the gradient of the function because the function is not differentiable. But the directional derivative exists. The special case of directional derivatives are partial derivatives. In case of B, if I take the coordinate direction EI, then that will be ith partial derivative. Therefore, all partial derivatives will exist. Therefore, I can form this vector, but I should not call it as a gradient vector because the function is not continuous and hence not differentiable. Okay. I hope all of you understand. Okay. Now I can go to the what I talked about yesterday, steepest ascent or steepest descent. Okay. Now suppose f is differentiable at A. Okay. And this is my A. Okay. Now I want to know, there are many directions through A, right? I can go through this. I can go, that is this direction. I can go through this direction, or I can go through this direction, or I can go through this direction, and so on. Okay. So this will be my B. This will be another one. And there will be another one, and so on. These are the vectors. These are the directions, right? What I want to know is along which direction my f in modulus will be increasing fastest. That is the rate of change of f in particular direction. I want it to be maximum. I want to know which direction. Is the question clear? Because remember, Newton's way of looking at derivative, it is a rate of change. So when the rate of change, in which direction the rate of change of f at A is going to be the steepest, fastest. Okay, that's what we want to answer. The answer is very easy now. Now let's look at, so we are assuming f is differentiable at A, the derivative is, f is differentiable at A and derivative is, this linear map, it is what we call derivative. This is my notation. Then let us look at. Yeah. Okay. So let us look at derivative. Okay, df at A acting on h. This is nothing other than directional derivative. Of f at A in which direction? In B direction. Sorry, in here. Okay, let me write it in BB. V direction. You understand this? Because we saw this is nothing other than limit of f of a plus tv minus f of a by t. Are you following? This is AB. Please, okay, don't lose heart. We did that. This is what I'm using. A is the derivative, right? So the rate of change of f at a in the direction of v is the directional derivative. That is given by a acting on v, where a is a linear map, b is the direction. You understand? I'm going to use that. Therefore, if you want, let me keep it AV, but this is nothing other than v dot alpha. And what is v? That is the gradient del f by del x1 at a, del f by del xn at a. You understand? So what do I want? This is the rate of change of f in the direction of v at a, that is given by this number. So I want to say when this number is maximum, right? That is what Cauchy-Schwarz inequality tells me. It says modulus of v dot alpha, this is a vector, right? This is less than or equal to length of v into length of alpha, right? That is what Cauchy-Schwarz inequality said. My gosh, I have to keep going. Oops. Yeah. Okay. Right. You follow this? Now, therefore, what can be the possible maximum? Maximum is when the inequality becomes equality. Right? Maximum. Because this is always less than or equal to this. Therefore, the possible maximum is when the inequality becomes equality. Now, Cauchy-Schwarz inequality tells you when equality holds. Modulus of x dot y is less than or equal to length x into length y, and equality holds if and only if, okay, one of them is a scalar multiple of the other. Either y is tx or x is some sy r. Because suppose one of them is 0, you can't write it. If y is non-zero vector, x is a 0 vector, you can't write it. Then I will write it 0 vector equal to 0 times y vector. Are you following? So one of them must be a scalar multiple of the other. And I know how to find the scalar multiple. That is x dot y is, I am assuming this thing, x dot tx, that is t times x dot x. Therefore, I know what is t also. All right. Therefore, equality holds if and only if this happens. You understand that? What does that mean? That means this v and alpha must be multiples of each other. You understand that? Multiples of one. One must be a multiple of the other. Right? But what is alpha? Alpha is the gradient. Right? Gradient of f at a. Therefore, the maximum rate of change takes place in the direction of the gradient. Okay? Take some time. If you are not seen these things, you will struggle a bit, but that's okay. In fact, if you look at my thing, I will also say when t is positive, when t is negative will also come on the way. Because this is modulus, right? If either x dot y equal to length x into length y, or minus x dot y, because modulus may be either x dot y or minus x dot y. In that case, this one. So accordingly, you have to write this. So this t will be positive or negative, so you can work out. Okay. So please go back. Let me go slow, or rather review. What do I want to know? I fixed a point A, and I want to know in which direction f has the steepest rate of change. Okay. That's what you call steepest ascent. If you go in the negative direction, it will be descent. It will be going below. Right. So when it happens, so what all I have to look at is this object, A acting on B, because the directional derivative of f in the direction of v is the rate of change. That is a dot v. But a dot v is given by v dot alpha. What is alpha? Alpha is a gradient. So what do I want to know? When this v dot alpha is a maximum. But Cauchy-Schwarz inequality tells me when does modulus of that, okay, attains a maximum. Modulus of v dot alpha is less than or equal to length of v into length of alpha, and equality holds if and only if one of them is a multiple of the scalar multiple of the other. Okay, now v dot alpha could be v dot alpha, modulus of v dot alpha could be either v dot alpha or minus of v dot alpha. So accordingly, one of them must be a scalar multiple. So this t can be worked out, and therefore you know the answer. So that explains whatever I wanted to say. Okay, and I think I took about 23 minutes after we came back. So I stopped my lectures, and please go through the article. I think a conceptual introduction in the last fourth and fifth lecture, I had given that article's name. Okay, and there are 2 or 3 more articles, but a conceptual introduction will be the easiest article for everybody. So please go through that, and then you will know. Okay, it's available here. So I stop sharing. I am ready for any questions and answers.
Sir, I have a
Maybe I
question.
should conduct a poll before that, so that otherwise everybody will be in a hurry to run. So let me first finish the poll.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Let me see. So I'll give you about 4 minutes. There are 3 questions. I want an honest answer, and more than that, you see my email ID. Those of you who want to write to me, okay, about your impressions about the series of lectures, okay, you don't have to flatter me or anything. You don't have to prize me. I am open for a very, very, okay, highly critical comments also, right? So the poll has started. Please have a look at. Question 3, you can choose more than one option. One, two, three, four, five. It's stabilized at the 60s. Okay. And as I mentioned to your teachers yesterday, no wonder Miranda House is a top ranking a college in the country. And I was told it is someone you secured the top rank 4 times consecutive or something. It's very impressive. But that should not blind us. We can do much better always. But I'm really very happy and thank all of you. And finally, I should thank Shweta Gandhi for the invitation because one of the most enjoyable lectures for me. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah, now you can ask questions because towards the end, I may forget or I may cut short this thanks. That's why I have to say it now itself. Yeah. Bhavna, you want to ask a question or say something?
Sir, I want to ask 3 questions today.
Yes. One. Ask one at a time.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have short-term memory. If you ask 3, I cannot remember.
No, sir. One at a time. Sir,
Okay.
this in the end we got that V or alpha, they will be scalar. One of them will be a scalar multiple of the other, right?
Right.
So now, if my alpha is non-zero, which will usually be the case,
That be the yes. Then
And-
V will be the scalar multiple. That's the direction.
then V
you are
will
going
be
in.
the scalar multiple. So that is why we
Right.
concluded that direction is along the gradient direction. Am I right, sir?
Exactly. Absolutely
Okay.
correct. I didn't want to spend time on such things. You are right.
Okay.
It's a
Okay.
very good.
And sir, alpha 0 means we are dealing with the constant function and then there is no rate of change.
No. You cannot just
No.
like that say because without being constant, the derivative can still be 0, right?
Mhm.
At some point. Yeah.
So then what about that case,
For
sir?
example, take f of x equal to x squared. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
At the 0, it is the derivative is 0, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the derivative is 0 in an open connected set, the function will be constant. But remember, the point is if it's a critical point, that is if it has a local maxima, minima,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
gradient will be 0 because all the partial derivatives will vanish.
Yes,
Right.
yes. Hmm.
Yeah. That
So then
it also
in
tells
that
you.
case-
Just 1 second. Now think of this: if the gradient is not 0, right? Then in that direction, my function will be either increasing or decreasing.
Hmm.
Right? If I go in the positive
Hmm.
direction of gradient, it may be increasing. The negative direction will be
Decreasing.
decreasing. Do you see that?
Hmm.
Therefore, it cannot be a local maxima or minima. If it's a maximum, and then it cannot increase in some direction.
Yes, yes.
The minimum, it cannot increase. Therefore, it is intuitively makes it clear why at a local maximum minima, the gradient must be 0. You see that it gives a geometric and physical reason why I expect the gradient to be 0 at a local extreme. Okay. Yeah.
Then sir, if
Yeah,
at
what
a
is your
point,
second question?
no, I am still at the question 1. So then if the gradient of the function at the point is 0, there we are not talking of the steepest descent. That means
You can't
because
do
it is
that. That's what I said. You are already at an extremum
at
point.
a maxima or
Likely to
minima.
be an extremum point. It may
Hmm.
also be one of those point of inflection, but in general, it will be undecided.
Okay. Okay. Now my second question is, sir, when we say like here, it was very nice to see that the differentiability of f at a point A. was related to a linear map capital A. Okay. Then my question is, this map A, capital A, will be dependent at the small a also, the point?
Of course, you look at, see, this is, wait, let's again go slow. This is what people don't understand. If I take f of x equal to x squared, the derivative
Yeah.
to a is 2a. It depends on a.
Yeah.
Even in one variable it happened, right? You simply think of 2x, people don't realize. You understand that? Derivative always depends at a point.
Yeah. And there is okay, then there may not be relation between all the linear maps for different. No, that's okay. I got that. My second question is, you said that
No, this was
third
the second
question.
question.
No, third question. My third
Okay.
question. My third question is, sir, that you said that we can't talk of the gradient unless the function is differentiable, right?
It's a kind of convention. You can see
Uh,
the point is the vector can still I can
yeah,
form.
yeah,
If the partial
yeah,
derivative is I can simply slide that.
yeah.
But why the gradient is important? Only if the function is differentiable, then I can make use of the gradient to derive some properties of the function. Right?
Yeah.
Now the function is not differentiable, but just because the partial derivative exists, if I form the thing, then I may try to conclude something which is not true at all.
Mm.
Right? You understand that?
Yes,
Because
sir.
if I want to compute say something about the behavior of f, I should know the differentiability.
Mm.
Then only I can use the gradient. Just because the gradient vector exists, you can't play with it. That
इसका
is why
मतलब
I said I don't want to define gradient unless the function is differentiable. Even though if the partial derivative exists, I can form that vector, but I will not call it the gradient vector.
This
Okay.
this I
It's a
appreciated a lot, sir. This
Yeah.
point. It's like मुर्गी पहले आई, अंडा पहले आई, तो function differentiability पहले आई, उसके बाद gradient का concept आया.
Exactly, because
है
that's the
ना?
problem with the calculus book. They just because they have a partial derivative, they
हाँ,
define the
exactly.
gradient first. Okay.
Yes.
You look at my article. I think you will like my article. Go through that. Okay.
Okay, sir.
It will be very useful if you teach multivariable calculus.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Yeah. Anybody else?
Sir, I have one question.
Yeah. Who is this?
Sir Shweta.
Shweta. Yeah.
Yeah, sir, I want to ask that why do we talk of differentiability on open sets only?
Right. That's a very good question. You will see my answer in that article, but I will give you in a minute. Okay. See, I said the derivative is a linear map A is unique.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
To prove A is unique, I need to move in all directions because let us say there are two such linear maps B which has the same property. You understand? That is f of A plus H minus f of A minus AH and f of A plus H minus f of A minus BH. Each is less than epsilon times length of H, whenever 0 less than length of H less than delta, right? Then I want to say the linear map A equal to B, right? Because I want to say uniqueness. Then only I can say that derivative. You understand? Okay, like a limit, right? Now, how do I prove these two linear maps are the same? If I prove A of B equal to B of E for each and every vector B in Rn. Because when two functions are equal, if and only if they agree on the domain.
Everywhere.
Right. Now to prove that, I need openness. I have to move around A in all the directions. That's what you will see in our proof.
Okay.
Yeah, that proof is also given in my article. That's a very small, very easy proof. If you try to read from Apostle or Rodin or one of your favorites, you may get confused with the uniqueness proof. Whereas if you read my proof, it's very easy. You will see it's so natural.
And sir, even if we are in one variable, then also that linear map will be the tangent line, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So then
Because,
also we
see,
want.
notice that there also what did you get? That's what I explained. In one variable, the linear map from R to R is given by scalar times thing. A x equal to some alpha x. What is alpha? A at 1. The number 1. That's it. Because any x I can write x times 1, x dot 1. Therefore, A of x will be ax dot A of 1. Right? You understand?
Correct.
A of x dot 1, but x will come out as a scalar, 1 as a vector will remain. Therefore, it is x dot alpha, where alpha is A1. That alpha is f dash A. If you look at my transcript, I have noted that. Okay, there also we talked about linear map. That is why we have now 4 interpretations of derivatives in all the cases. One is Newton's way of instantaneous velocity or rate of change. Okay, other one is linear approximation, and the polynomial, first degree polynomial approximation. The third one is this. Okay. Fourth one just it doesn't occur to me. We did that. Just 1 second. I will. Sukumar, I will call you in a minute after 10 minutes. Yeah.
Sir, I want to ask one,
Yes.
just in connection what Shweta has said, that was also, in research, we always have, whenever we talk of differentiability of a function, we always consider an open set.
Right.
Yeah. But in our, first year courses, if you have a function defined in a closed interval, then
That's right.
can we dock on the right-hand derivative and left-hand derivative?
Yes. You are. In fact, in one of my lectures, I mentioned that if
Okay.
f is
Sir, your
I
voice is
usually
not.
put it in flight mode. Yeah, I usually put it in
No.
flight mode. I forgot. Yeah.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
So whenever we, try to prove mean value theorems, we require the function to be continuous on a closed and differentiable on an open
That's
interval.
correct.
But we can obviously talk differentiability on a closed interval also.
Right. The only thing is at the end points it will be one-sided.
It will one-sided.
There is absolutely no problem.
No
That is a special case only available in R.
In R.
R. Right.
Hmm.
And higher
Only because
dimensions.
because in higher dimensions we want to remain in the domain, so that will happen only if we have an open set.
That's right.
So the neighborhood will. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sir, just I want to have share one thing, that your lectures were so motivating, even for us, for teachers also, to think in a particular direction. In class we are unable to do because of the time constraint, and lot of theory children usually don't like. But the way you have linked everything, it was very impressive. And because we have been using the concept of differentiability in our research, so I was aware of, not 100% of your thinking, but somewhat 60 to 70%. But then it has really, what should I say, that it has really inspired me. I will also, inculcate these things in my lectures now. And the concept clearance it was very good. The way you connected, that was very impressive.
Thank you very much. And I also appreciate your kind of candidness. Okay, in front of student, you said, even I have not understood 100%, but at least 60-70%, that should send a message to our students also. Because that's what I liked about you guys here. Okay, being teachers, you don't want to pretend that I already know. It's only for you guys, for students, etc. I mean, I'm being very honest. I'm really amazed. Okay, I have never seen. It's not only you. Almost each one of you, the teachers here, are so honest and candid. Okay, which is very rare. I really admire, and I'm very glad I accepted to lecture here. Okay, it's nice to see good people.
Yeah, actually, we have heard, we have learned this when we were graduating and post-graduating, but we keep forgetting, now it has refreshed our memories. Like the way you said that, the partial derivative gradient, you can form the vector, but still the function has to be differentiable to move forward. So that is, one thing we should keep in mind. Suddenly we forget. We have got a vector, so let us call the function differentiable.
Right. Then you will arrive to some wrong conclusion.
Some wrong
The function
conclusion.
may not be differentiable.
Yeah. Because, these
right.
things are very important in research. If you are writing a paper and you go wrong somewhere like this, so it's really, it was very amazing, sir, listening to your lecture. Unfortunately, yesterday I could not attend your lecture, but I have the PDF. I'll go through, and if I have any sort of discussing with you, I think you should allow me to discuss with you anytime.
Absolutely no problem.
Okay, sir.
I'm open now that I'm a retired guy. Okay. So at any time you can give. We can even have a Zoom meeting. Okay.
Absolutely,
Face to
sir.
face we can discuss. There is no problem for me.
Okay.
The only thing is, here I'm at IIT Kanpur, so the internet connectivity is pretty good. When I go back to my home, I plan to have something, the topmost connection available. But you cannot be sure about good connectivity all the time, at a domestic place.
So
That's
how
the
long
only thing.
you are here, sir? How long you are here in IIT?
I'll be here till I wanted to leave in June end because of COVID.
Okay.
They wanted
You're
to
not
extend it
allowed.
for one more year, but I said I don't want because somehow because it's almost 1.5 years since I left Hyderabad,
Oh,
right?
oh, okay.
So home you have to leave, otherwise it get bad.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
want to go back. So by December end I will go back.
Oh,
Probably 31st of December or 1st of January I will leave.
yeah.
But feel free at any time.
Thank you so much.
And please do download that article, a conceptual introduction. All of you will be amazed. Okay, up to within about 12 pages, I can even do Taylor's theorem maximum minimum. You will see why you are not taught like that. Okay,
Yeah,
okay. You will love it,
yeah.
and so that you can implement in your teaching also.
Yeah, yeah. That is the most important thing.
That's more important. Yes,
Yeah,
of course.
more
Sure.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Sir, I want to ask.
Rachana first. Yeah,
Yes.
Rachana
Okay,
already
okay.
opened. Yeah.
Sir, is there any common platform where we get to know about all the articles you have written? Like this one
Oh,
was
come
about
on.
several
See,
very.
I am really okay. I should say I am very angry and annoyed with you. You know why? Because I
No.
had already given the article. All my expository articles are available, more than 200. Okay. In fact, I have
Oh,
about 260, but up to 210 or 20 are uploaded there. Okay. And we also have a search facility. You may not even know whether I have an article or not, but if you have something like mean value theorem or multivariable calculus or the Frechet derivative or the total derivative, this kind of words or inverse function theorem, right? Or Silos theorem, you want rank nullity theorem, you just type it, matrix rank, you will type anything, you will see whether there are articles of mine in that direction or not. It's up to you. It's all free. Yeah.
yeah.
So go to that. I'll just show you that. Just 1 second. You see that?
Yes, sir. Okay. Oh,
You also
sorry.
see this?
I didn't. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, people don't read. That's the problem. This EA
Sorry.
stands for expository articles. That
Okay.
also I wrote in the very first lecture. EA stands
I
for
don't read
expository
the
articles.
first one. That's fine,
Okay.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Priyanshi.
Priyanshi. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, you said that the steepest ascent will be in the direction of gradient once V and alpha will be linearly, or we can say that it is one is the multiple of the other. Sir, I lost
In
you
fact,
there.
in fact, just 1
How,
second. You're right. Yeah. Yeah. Say it. I'm sorry. I
sir,
sorry.
I lost you at that point when you said that if it is linearly dependent, then it will be the steepest.
Yeah.
Sir,
It has
how
to be
that
scalar multiple.
in the
Only in that
direction of,
direction. Yeah.
sir,
That's because
how
of
did
Cauchy.
we say this? Say that?
Huh?
So how did
How
we
did I
come
say
to
that?
that? How did we come to that conclusion that if it is a scalar multiple, then only it will be in that?
There are two. See, I think you missed the last few minutes of my lecture. Let me just share again and show you. Yeah. See, this is the Cauchy-Schwarz inequality, right? V
Yes.
dot alpha for V and alpha vectors, modulus of V dot alpha is less than or equal to length of V into length of alpha. Now, the Cauchy-Schwarz inequality, people only use this, but whenever there is an inequality, the equality case will always have geometric interpretation. Except me, nobody says that. Okay, even arithmetic geometric mean, if equality holds, there is a geometric meaning. So hereafter, you look up for anything, whenever there is equality, inequality, the equality case has a geometric meaning. Let us come back to this question. So one can ask when the equality holds here. Equality holds here if and only if, okay, one of the vector is a scalar multiple of the other. It not only says it's a scalar multiple, that's what books will also write, but the proof actually says what is the scalar. That I found out. Okay. Now let's come back. So equality holds if and only if one is a scalar multiple of the other. Okay. Now come back to this. Where is that? Yeah. Maybe I should write again. Okay, this is the direction. In which direction it's going to be there. This is your gradient, delta f at a. Okay, this is your directional derivative, right? Directional derivative. Why all of a sudden you're writing like this? Directional derivative of f in the direction of Okay, so this I want to maximize. So this, if first I maximize, look for the maximum for absolute value. Okay, when this maximum occurs is whenever, so irritating. All of a sudden something goes wrong. Okay, good. Okay, if only one of them. Now assume the gradient is not 0. Okay, let me first, this is linear algebra. Suppose B and W are linearly dependent. Okay, this means one is a scalar multiple of the other. But if
Yes, sir.
both are non-zero, then each is a scalar multiple of the other. If I know, for example, B is non-zero, then W must be a scalar multiple of B. Okay, and V is non-zero. Implies W must be scalar multiple of this. Now let's, if A is not a point of what you call critical point. Critical point is where the derivatives, the gradient is 0. Okay. So if A is not a critical point, then my direction V therefore must be a scalar multiple of gradient. From this linear algebra and from this Cauchy-Schwarz inequality, this much I get. You understand? Now what is this B? That also I can find out. Because what all I have to do is I have to take this. This is T times delta f A and gradient f at A. Because V is this. Therefore, I know what is T. T is going to be this. Okay. Therefore, I know the best possible direction. It must be this. Now, notice that if T, suppose this is negative, okay, then it's going to be steepest descent. If this is positive, then it will be the positive. When, see, you follow what I mean? Suppose T is positive, then V is positive scalar multiple of del A. You understand? Therefore, this will be B dot del F A will be T times del F A dot del F A. Okay, this is a positive because this is non-zero, this is also positive. Therefore, this is positive. Do you follow that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah? Okay. So
Yes,
what does
sir.
it say now? Right? It is going to be increasing in the direction of,
The gradient.
right? So if V is in the negative direction, that okay, this is my gradient, and suppose my V is this way. This is my V, okay? This is therefore is a negative multiple of gradient. This is my gradient. Right? Then
Yes.
what does it say? This is negative. That means it is going to decrease fastest. So this is the reason. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Here it only says absolute value, but then being a real number, there are only two possibilities. It is itself or it's a negative. So work out the case. Then I know what is the scalar also. The sign of the scalar is going to determine whether V is in the same direction of gradient or it is in the opposite direction. If it is in the same direction, naturally it's equality, therefore it's okay, positive quantity, therefore it's going to increase. Have you understood?
Yes, sir.
At least 70%?
Sir, maybe 50. I'll review it again.
60, that's good enough. That's good enough. Anything above 50 is more than enough for me.
Okay, sir.
Because you have to, because this kind of thing, since I have thought about, I can say fast, but you have to
Yes, sir.
think through. It will take
Yes,
time.
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
But if you
Thank
got
sir.
the idea, then you can follow it up on your own. Very good.
Respected teachers, Professor Kumaresan, and students, it is my privilege to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of the Department of Mathematics, Miranda House. I extend my sincere thanks to our principal ma'am for providing all the necessary infrastructure. I express my gratitude to Professor Kumaresan for sparing his precious time for us. Sir, your years of research, depth of understanding, and ability to present mathematics in such an interesting and geometric way resulted in one of our most memorable lecture series for us. I would like to thank Dr. Dolti Verma, our teacher in charge, for all her efforts, Dr. Ritu Gupta and Dr. Meetu Bhatia Grover for being our backbone in our endeavor and constantly motivating and inspiring us to organize this lecture series. Our special thanks to Dr. Sweta Gandhi for managing this lecture series with her continuous hard work. I am thankful to our mentors, Dr. Jyoti, Dr. Rekha, Dr. Sally, Miss Grima, Mr. Omkar, for their constant efforts. Last but not the least, I thank all our students for active participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Does
sir.
any
Thank
student
you
want
very much.
to say something? Okay.
We wish we would have one more session with you. It is like it will be very nice if we'll have one more lecture series with you in future.
Yeah, next, from starting from tomorrow till 24th, I am engaged too much for some foundation course at the national level. We are going to have a massive
Not so now,
training
but
plan.
in future means like math
Sure, that will
department
be
will
great. Yeah,
organize. It will be so
thank,
nice.
thank you very much.
So,
I
no, sir.
also look
Thank you very
forward
much.
it. I also look forward to it because, as I said, very rarely I have seen among teachers and students alike who are eager to clear their doubts and ask. Okay, I don't think so many questions had ever been asked, especially by teachers also. That's very nice. Because the more question I ask, then I also try to improve. Okay, that's very good. Thank you very much. Certainly, I look forward to another visit if and when time arises. Yeah, sure. Thank you.